Hello, everybody. Today I am talking about the Dasha of Retrograde planets, and this is continuing with the Masterclass of the retrograde planets. So it is very important to note when your Dasha Lord is retrograde. So, what are the important things we should be aware of and how to deal with it? Hello, I'm Komilla Sutton, and we are continuing with the masterclass on retrograde planets. And today I'm talking about the Dasha of the retrograde planets. So I'm putting a link here. You can see all the other retrogrades I've done, and you can watch them and understand them. So today the focus is on the dasha. Now, when I say dasha, I mean dasha, which is Mahadasha, Bhukti or Antara, Prayantara. Usually not so much about Sukshama and Prana, which is the fourth and fifth level of dasha. Usually the experience of the energy is in the dasha bhukti. And if you have planets retrograde in your chart, and when are you going to most experience them? Some of them are giving you a natural quality that you deal with and you work with, but otherwise you are dealing with them at the time when the dasha is on. So one of the things that happens with retrograde planets is that when the dasha begins, it's almost as if you're holding yourself back and you're not experiencing the full quality of the dasha. So that is something that you have to watch out for. And there can be delay, some obstacle that you feel. And it's a lot of psychological issues that you feel. So you can feel some psychological issues that you're not allowing yourself to move forward. And then you have to also, of course, look at the quality of the retrograde planet. I mentioned all these in the masterclass, the first class about retrogrades. Is your planet Vakri, Ati Vakri, Vikala? That means is it, slow, retrograde, normal retrograde, stationary? All those things will also make a big difference. Dasha of a stationary planet, that is stationary direct, is very powerful and about to go retrograde stationary. So all these factors you have to take into account, that what is the quality of the retrograde. And so as I said, I mentioned all those things in the first class I did about retrograde planets. And then we want to see that what houses the retrograde planet rules. So what houses it's ruling will have an impact as well. And then, of course, what is the karaka of the planet? So each planet has its own karaka and it will act accordingly. And remember, retrograde is too much, too little. There's not so much balance in retrograde planets. So when you go into a retrograde dasha, then suddenly you are going to experience that energy. Then, did you start off with retrograde dasha this lifetime? So that can have a great impact on you, because that means that your moon is in the nakshatra of a retrograde planet. So that means your mind, your thinking is very much outside the box. It's not thinking traditionally. It's, thinking outside the box. You're different from others. You don't always follow the rules. So that is one important factor to consider. Then, are you having retrograde dashas all the time? So, sometimes you can have Mars retrograde, then Rahu, then Jupiter's retrograde, Saturn is retrograde. That means a long period of your life is a retrograde energy. And then certain retrogrades are rarer. Saturn retrogrades most of the time. So almost 35% of people will have Saturn retrograde, whereas Venus retrogrades very rarely. So Venus retrograde will be more unusual to have in your chart. And of course, Venus's dasha is 20 years long. So its impact will be very different from, and rarer. So fewer people will have, and fewer people will be dealing with that aspect. So first thing that we understand about retrograde planets dasha is that it can also create some health problems. And especially if your Lagna Lord is retrograde and you get the dasha and the age is also appropriate, it can bring health problems. And the main reason is this, that only 5 planets get retrograde, not Rahu Ketu. Rahu Ketu are always retrograde. But the 5 main planets that get retrograde are Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, and Saturn. They are all rulers of the 5 great elements. And the 5 great elements has a huge say in our physical body. They rule the tattvas, the physical constitution. So when this element is retrograde, that means it's not fully functioning. And therefore, when the dasha comes, it means that's the time that we are going to deal with those issues that are connected with the element and the dasha. So the 5 elements, Mars rules fire, Agni. So your energy, how you, verve, vitality. So it being retrograde means that Agni, the way the fire burns in your body is complicated. It can burn too bright or it can not burn at all. So how to keep that working? Then Mercury is earth element, and Mercury also rules the skin and the touch. So the earth element is out of focus, and it can give things with balance and how to deal with situations. Remember, this is not the karakas, these are the elements. And the earth element out of focus in your chart can bring some difficulty in balancing yourself and nerves and thinking maybe, but that would be the karaka for Mercury. Then Jupiter's ether element, and ether protects you. And so the lack of protection can be one of the issues that causes health problems. That means we don't bother about our health. We don't care about our health. And then the Venus is water element. Water is 85% of our body. But remember, Venus goes very seldom retrograde. So our emotional water, feel-good energy can be out of focus. And finally, Saturn, which is air element. Air is also Vata. It is also, the one that takes illness from one area to the other. And sometimes with a retrograde planet, the energy remains focused in an area and it's sort of not allowing it to release the issues. So, looking at the 5 elements, then each planet itself, when we are looking at the dasha and you come into the dasha, remember, as soon as you come into a new dasha, that dasha will be predominantly that planet. Dasha, Bhukti will all be connected to that planet. Then we go into the different Bhuktis that come later. So there's a sort of full-on experience right at the start of the dasha, but then the overall energy is there. So Mars dasha, the retrograde, that means that it is going to, how you act, what you do, you can be stubborn, over angry, little angry. Sometimes what happens is that new Mars dasha is coming and you think it's going to be so active and full on, whereas it isn't, because Mars is retrograde. It's holding you back. So all the energy is getting stuck and being within you. So there you have to find a way of how to express it. You do need to see what is the house rulership of Mars. Those are the areas it can affect. And Mars body parts are muscles and blood and uterus as well. So those areas and other body parts you can read up in the books. I'm just giving you the few ones in each planet. They have a potential to get affected. Then Mercury. Mercury is your intellect, your thinking. You're definitely thinking outside the box. You can speak too much, you can speak too little. During the dasha, suddenly you will stop talking, suddenly you'll stop doing things. So it is important to see how you react to those situations. So how you deal with them, how you react to the situations. And sometimes, you can be a person of few words and suddenly you become talking too much, and finding a medium, but also the analytical skills. There's too much analysis, too little analysis. So you can think totally so outside the box. It's not about success or failure, because a lot of people with retrograde Mercuries can be hugely successful because thinking outside the box is great. But at the same time, if you are making yourself unsettled, then that is not good. Mercury deals with nerves, skin problems, and also Mercury is sometimes weight issues. So Mercury retrograde can give weight problems as well. Then we go to Jupiter retrograde. Jupiter retrograde is Dasha is 16 years. I didn't give the timing for the others, but you should all know Mars is 7 years, Mercury is 17 years, Jupiter 16 years. And 16 years Jupiter Dasha, Jupiter is the guru. You have some difficult relationship with knowledge and advice, and how you deal with the advice that can be complicated as well. You can advise people too much, or you don't take advice yourself. So during the Jupiter period, these things become very highlighted. And Jupiter deals with liver and also with diabetes. You see, sometimes during Jupiter retrograde, diabetes can be a problem as well, the dasha of the Jupiter retrograde. And Jupiter is also Karaka for husband, it's Karaka for children. So the retrograde usually always promises children, but it is the attitude and relationship with them that can get fractured if Jupiter retrograde is not properly addressed. Venus retrograde, Venus represents all beautiful things in life. It represents the womanhood. It represents marriage. So Venus retrograde, you can have an unusual idea of what you want from marriage, that maybe you find it's not being satisfied. It can give how you view yourself as a woman, as a person. In a man's chart, the retrograde is about the wife, that they may be dissatisfied with their wife during the dasha because the retrograde is kicking in and they are wanting something else, and they've got a conventional marriage or whatever you have, you feel you want something else. And Venus is Karaka for Shukra, sugar. So diabetes, pancreas, those are the two main areas of Venus. And then finally Saturn. Saturn is Karaka for all the difficult things in life. So when you have Saturn Dasha, you can feel very unhappy, and then you can wallow in that unhappiness. You can feel unsettled. You can feel illness can be there, because Saturn is Karaka for illness. Saturn is Karaka for work, so you can overwork or not work at all. So this Saturn Dasha, especially when it comes in, the Stambhana Shakti of Shani, the blocking factor of Shani can be very strong. So you can suddenly feel blocked by Saturn, and you find that it is not doing anything for you, and you're not able to move forward. So you have to make effort and, not just stay where you are. So it takes time and to work with that energy. And because Saturn is Karaka for misery, you have to be careful that you're not just being miserable. You have to look at optimistic way of looking at life. As the Karaka for illness and long-term illness, then Saturn can give health issues, and generally nervousness, cancers, difficult areas of long-term health issues, arthritis, all sorts of things Saturn can give as problems. And so we have to see, of course, you have to see the age, you have to see the chart, you have to see all those things as well. If your Lagna Lord is retrograde, then definitely it will affect health. And if other aspects are there as well, if it is, and it's also can be just affecting your thinking and the way you see, then what about the Bhukti? When the Bhukti comes in, so of course Dasha Bhukti will be together at the beginning of the retrograde planets. But let's say you have Saturn retrograde and you have Venus retrograde, and then you get Saturn Venus Dasha. Then you have to pay a bit more importance to Venus, because that is the Bhukti and that is your present experience. It's like Saturn Dasha, you're already used to it, you're working with it. But two retrograde planets will become doubly awkward or doubly different. And so, you have to be conscious of that. Then if you have a normal direct planet Dasha and the Bhukti comes retrograde, that means you are going perfectly fine and suddenly you stop yourself from doing things. Suddenly you block yourselves from creating, doing whatever you were doing. So the role of the retrograde is important to keep at the back of your mind. So you will go to Rahu Ketu retrograde. Now, Rahu Ketu are normally retrograde all the time. So they are not doing anything different to what their nature is. So when you see the 5 planets that get retrograde, they are going against their nature. Rahu Ketu are retrograde all the time. So therefore, Rahu Ketu have their own rules about the dashas of Rahu Ketu. Maybe I'll do a separate video on Rahu Ketu dashas. But for Rahu Ketu, the same Rahu Ketu aspect is there. They go retrograde, they do different things. I think that with Rahu Ketu, unless there's something specific indicated, like Rahu is debilitated, Ketu is debilitated, you wouldn't so much think about health matters, or Rahu is in Dushtana houses, Ketu is in Dushtana houses as well. So otherwise you wouldn't think of them. So you have to think of Rahu Ketu. I did a video on the secrets of Rahu Ketu and Rahu Ketu forever retrograde. So you can study those and know more about the Rahu Ketu dashas. And in the finale, what I would like to say is, what is the remedy you can do about the retrograde dasha? Firstly is to understand and be aware that the planet is retrograde and that you're running in the dasha of the retrograde planet. So you need to work with that. You need to develop that. And then secondly, you need to, there's a beautiful temple near Pondicherry. I talked about that, and it's called Vakra Kali Temple. I'm putting a mini video here. You can see it. It's called Vakra Kali Temple. And it's the temple for Goddess Kali, where people worship for the retrograde planets. So if you are in India or you want to go near Pondicherry, you can go and visit that temple. Otherwise, you have to sometimes address this fact that something is stopping you, blocking you from expressing, and you have to slowly, not rush into it, but slowly try to find a medium ground. And secondly, I always feel that if you are feeling something is blocking you, then you understand it, not try to push yourself, because that is how you are. If you're thinking outside the box, being different, so what's wrong with that? You have to understand that maybe you will not be in harmony with everybody because you are different, you think differently. And I feel that is important for you. Also, you can do, a number of yoga exercises, asana practice, where they twisting vakri postures are there. You can't do them in isolation. You have to do the whole energy, the whole asana practice, but include the vakra asana in it, because that will also help you to unblock the blocks that you feel. So thank you very much. Leave me some messages to tell me how you have enjoyed this class, and any questions you have, I try to reply to them. Check out my website, komilla.com, and thank you.